Arctic is back with their second entry in the Liquid Freezer series of AIO coolers. Howdy guys, Ponchato here, and today we'll be checking out the Liquid Freezer 2 240mm from Arctic, which, just like everyone else, promises good cooling performance, but also several big features I love. Very clean cable management, a VRM fan on the pump, and a PWM control scheme for the pump as well. The Liquid Freezer 2 is also available in 120, 360, and 280mm variants. Thanks to Arctic for sending this out for review, and let's get started. The Liquid Freezer 2 series was released in late 2019 and available from about $70 US for the 120mm version up to $120 for the 360. This one, the 240, goes for about 85 bucks. It's compatible with AM4, LGA 1151, and LGA 2066, and based on my benchmarks, the 240mm version should be able to handle about a 250 watt TDP. The radiator is about par for the course, all black, 38mm thick by itself and 63 with the fans, and has aluminum fins. The nice thing is the radiator comes pre-assembled with the fans in the exhaust configuration, so assembly time is cut down quite a bit. If you'll be using it as an intake though, the fans can be unscrewed and reattached to the other side as normal. The coolant tubes are sleeved, feel sturdy, and the sleeving seems strong and durable. The pattern is simple and looks good too. The tubes are 450mm long except for the 120mm version, which has 350mm tubes to more easily fit in smaller cases. You've probably noticed by now there aren't many wires on this cooler. In fact, there's only one. The really nice aspect of the Liquid Freezer 2 is cable management, which is basically that you don't have to do any at all. There's only one wire visible anywhere, the PWM cable that comes out of the pump. Everything is controlled by that one wire, the pump speed, the VRM fan, and the radiator fans. You are giving up a bit of fine-grained control for setting different curves for the fans and the pump, and the minor downside of only being able to monitor the RPM of the pump, but in my opinion, that's well worth it. Some AIOs I've tested have 5 separate cables to control everything. Larger 360mm coolers could have 7 or more. I hate wires and they're a pain to deal with, so I'm all about this one wire design. The fans are from Arctic's new P-Series line with high static pressure and a low vibration fluid dynamic bearing. These 120mm fans run from 200 to 1800 RPM and, on a subjective note, aren't obnoxious at full speed. The noise is still a gentle whir, even with both running at 1800 RPM. Now, centered to the cooler is the pump, and Arctic actually put in a ton of work here. It was designed in-house by Arctic, not by Asetek, which designs and manufactures probably like 2/3 of all AIOs. One thing I love is that the pump itself is PWM controlled, which means the Liquid Freezer 2 actually gets quiet at idle because the pump can run as slow as 800 RPM compared to its max speed of 2000. In terms of size, it covers a fairly large area of the motherboard, but it is very low profile, barely taller than standard height RAM. Part of the reason for its size is a feature which turned out a lot more useful than I expected. The pump includes a 40mm fan to cool the CPU VRM. It's a tiny fan and a simple idea. It's just to get air moving around the surface of the motherboard to cool down the components. When I first tested it, it seemed like the VRM fan was barely moving any air, but I kept an eye on the VRM temperatures while running my normal benchmarks. Turns out it works really well. With most CPU coolers, the VRM on my test bench hits over 100 degrees Celsius during the stress test, since I test on an open bench with no other fans cooling the VRM. With the Liquid Freezer 2 and this pump cooling down the motherboard, the VRM stayed under 90 degrees for the entire test run. Now, most VRMs these days are technically within spec up to 125 degrees Celsius, but you don't want to be bouncing off the thermal limit, which I've done more than once, and a more than 10 degree drop like this will definitely have an impact on longevity. The best part is, despite having an RPM range of 1000 to 3000 RPM, even at full speed, the VRM fan is very quiet, so you aren't making a huge sacrifice in noise for temperature. Like everything else I've reviewed from Arctic, installation is well documented and straightforward. First, Arctic has animated, illustrated instructions on their website in like 6 different languages, including actual video instructions. And second, it's just an easy cooler to install. You start with screwing the pump mounting brackets to the pump. The fans are already attached to the radiator, so that's actually all you have to do to prepare it. It's just ready to go after that. Add a dab of the included thermal paste to your CPU and screw the pump down to the motherboard, then plug in the single PWM cable. The last step is attaching the radiator to your case, and that's actually it. The pre-installed fans and awesome cable management make this one of the easiest coolers to install, period. But now let's check out the benchmarks, starting with idle temperatures. With everything at minimum speed, the Liquid Freezer 2 kept my Ryzen 7 1700 at 6.6 degrees above ambient, so barely above room temperature. Idle noise is also kept very low, but not completely silent. 30 decibels is audible if you're close to your PC and in a quiet room, but that's still completely unobtrusive. Even a single hard drive is going to be louder than this. Now here are the load temperatures, with the coolers running at their maximum RPM. At full speed, the 240mm Liquid Freezer 2 goes toe-to-toe with some of the strongest air coolers on the market, at 39.3 degrees above ambient. That corresponds to an absolute temperature of under 65 degrees in my studio, a very reasonable temperature for a hot CPU like this under max load. Now here are the load noise levels, with the Liquid Freezer 2 actually quieter than I expected at just under 46 decibels. In the past, other AIOs I've tested have been loud, like really loud, at full tilt, but this one isn't. It's right in the middle of the pack for high-end air coolers, and that's including the extra noise from having a pump and a third fan on top of the pump. Not bad at all. Finally, load temperature normalized to 40 decibels. This is where the Liquid Freezer 2 shines. Basically, with coolers running at the same noise level of 40 dB, this one kept the lowest temperature of the ones I've run with this test bench, at just over 40 degrees Celsius. Arctic puts on an impressive show. So the Liquid Freezer 2 actually outdid my expectations. I didn't think the tiny pump fan would do much, but it dropped the VRM temperatures by more than 10 degrees Celsius. I thought noise performance would suck because it's a liquid cooler, but it didn't. It was really good. It landed in the middle of the pack of high-end air coolers and actually beat all of them in temperature at the same noise level. And finally, I thought installation would be annoying because AIOs are usually just a bigger hassle than air coolers, but it wasn't. Pre-installed fans save a good amount of time and effort, and having only one single wire to plug in for the whole thing is so nice. But it saves a significant amount of time and effort in dealing with cable management. You only have one wire to deal with. And I just want to make a quick note here. Like all liquid coolers, when you first turn it on, there's a bit of water noise as bubbles are cleared from the pump. It's helpful to remember that so you don't freak out like I did the first time I plugged in an AIO. Anyway, the big question, should you buy a Liquid Freezer 2? If you're building a new mid to high-end PC or upgrading from a stock or low-end cooler, I'd give the Liquid Freezer 2 a strong recommendation. Its noise and cooling performance are excellent, installation is simple even compared to air coolers, and it's just a very clean-looking cooler. On top of that, it's very reasonably priced for the performance that you get. Follow the link in the description to pick one up for yourself. Hit subscribe and click the bell icon to get notified of new videos as soon as they're up. If you like this video, hit the like button. If you want to see more, hit subscribe, and I want to hear from you. We're like 3 weeks into 2020. Have you kept your New Year's resolutions? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching. I hope I helped, and I'll see you in the next video.